Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're stepping into the really intriguing world of Shady part of me. So picture this. You're playing a game, navigating with two characters, right? They're completely intertwined. One's a young girl who's terrified of light, living in the physical world.
Okay.
And the other is her shadow, who naturally can only move in the light.
Ah, that's a fascinating setup right there, that core concept, that duality.
Exactly. It immediately struck me. That link, but also the opposition, light and shadow tied directly to the characters.
Yeah, it's just straight away this narrative that's going to be rich with themes of like dependence, maybe limitation too.
Totally. And we've got a really good source for this deep dive, someone who recently played the whole thing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Shady part of me. Played it on an Xbox Series X.
Well,
took about 5 hours, give or take.
5 hours, okay. Decent length.
Yeah. And interestingly, they mentioned, even though it's on Game Pass, there was no quick resume. You know that Xbox feature?
Right, where you jump straight back in. Odd for Game Pass.
A bit odd, yeah.
Yeah.
But they did say the game itself was seamless, like it always put them right back where they left off. So no real progress lost.
Well, that's the main thing, I suppose.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack the beginning. It opens with this image, a girl on a swing. It seems innocent enough. But it quickly shifts into this quite surreal, almost dreamlike journey. The lines get really blurry between, actual reality and her inner world, her psyche.
So it pulls you into that mental landscape pretty fast.
Instantly. And you control both characters.
Yeah.
The girl, she's in a 3D environment, but her shadow moves on a 2D plane.
Yeah.
You have to switch between them.
Ah, okay. So that's the core puzzle mechanic then, switching perspectives.
Exactly. It's all about environmental puzzles. It's definitely best described as a 3D, 2D adventure puzzle game. The focus is really on the thinking, the puzzle solving, not so much on action or reflexes.
And that interplay, the 3D and the 2D, that's not just for show, is it? It must affect how you actually solve things.
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental. Like, you might have the girl push an object in the 3D world just to cast a specific shadow shape.
That the shadow character, another, they call her, can then use on the 2D plane to progress.
Okay, yeah, that adds a really interesting spatial layer to the puzzle. You're thinking in two different dimensions simultaneously, kind of.
Precisely. And while the game does let you rewind if you mess up or restart from checkpoints, which are apparently quite frequent, there are no in-game hints. None at all.
Bold choice. Can be frustrating, but sometimes adds to the satisfaction.
True. Our player also mentioned the game's in Japanese, the voice acting, but the font choices for subtitles and things were really thoughtful, stylistically fitting, which is a nice touch for presentation.
Yeah, details like that matter. Adds to the atmosphere.
Definitely. So our mission here for this deep dive is really to get under the skin of it. What clicked with this player? What were the challenges? And, ultimately, what is Shady part of me trying to say about, well, the complexities of being human, maybe, the psyche. Yeah, and I'm keen to explore how those mechanics we just talked about, controlling the two separate yet linked characters, how does that actually serve the exploration of the psyche? Is it just like window dressing, or is it baked right into the themes?
Good question. Well, let's start with atmosphere. That seems like a good place.
Right.
The player reported that the overall feel, it really nails that sense of being inside someone's head, a mental world, but without getting too heavy or, overly serious about it.
Right, avoiding melodrama, but still capturing something internal.
Exactly. They really praised the visuals and the music, said there's this very consistent, muted color palette across the whole game.
Ah, okay. That kind of choice, it immediately sets a tone, doesn't it? Somber, maybe introspective.
Yeah, it stops the dreamlike world feeling too, whimsical. It kind of grounds it in whatever the protagonist is struggling with internally. It seems like a key way they approach representing those mental states.
That makes sense. A consistent visual language, like a muted palette, really reinforces the mood. It probably makes you feel that introspection, maybe a bit of melancholy, without being depressing. How did the music play into that?
Well, our source didn't go into super detail on specific tracks, but they definitely conveyed that the visuals and the sound worked together really well, created this immersive atmosphere.
Synergy, yeah.
One thing the player pointed out, which I thought was quite insightful, they noticed the backgrounds gradually shifted, became more inorganic, less natural as the game went on.
Oh, interesting. Like from forests and gardens to maybe pipes and machinery, that kind of thing?
Something like that, yeah. And they felt this visual shift really lined up with how the story was unfolding.
That's a clever environmental storytelling technique. That transition, moving from organic to inorganic. It could symbolize a lot, couldn't it? Maybe feeling more detached or deeper into the constructed parts of the mind, or feeling more trapped.
Right. It speaks volumes without needing dialogue to spell it out.
Exactly. Subtle but effective.
Okay, let's talk level design and pacing. The player really liked the checkpoint system. Apparently, they're pretty frequent, like every 1 to 3 puzzles.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they felt it stopped the puzzle solving becoming a massive roadblock. Especially important, in a game where the story is pulling you forward. You don't want to get stuck for ages.
Definitely not. Frequent checkpoints show they were thinking about the player experience. Lets you tackle the challenge, but doesn't punish you too hard if you stumble. Keeps the focus on the journey, which seems central here.
And speaking of that journey, there are collectibles. Origami birds scattered around.
Ah, collectibles. Love them or hate them.
Well, this player seemed to appreciate them. They said it gave a nice sense of overall progress. Like seeing your collection grow was a tangible sign you were exploring thoroughly.
Yeah, when done well, collectibles can do that. They can encourage you to poke around, reward you for being observant, and give that secondary sense of progression alongside the main story. Sounds like they worked here.
Seems so. Now, what about difficulty? Generally, the player didn't find the main path too hard. If you're just going for the end, ignoring the origami, it sounds like a relatively smooth ride.
Okay. Accessible then.
Mostly. But they did say finding some of those origami and also tackling some of the later stages, that definitely ramped things up. Required a fair bit of trial and error sometimes.
This sounds like a pretty good balance, actually. An accessible core path, but with optional challenges and a rising difficulty curve for those who want it. Caters to different players.
Yeah, seems well judged. Okay, let's move on to the characters and the narrative itself. The performances of the 2 main characters, the girl and her shadow, another, got specific praise.
Good voice acting can make such a difference.
Huge difference. And apparently the game really effectively portrays that mix of innocence and anxiety you often see in young people. It comes through their different perspectives, how they talk to each other.
That dual perspective must be powerful for exploring those themes. Seeing the world through both the girl who's afraid of light and the shadow who needs it. You'd get this constant interplay of vulnerability and maybe unexpected strength.
Totally. And it really highlights how they need each other, even though they seem quite isolated in this, internal world.
Right. They're stuck together, literally.
Yeah. And the player specifically mentioned the dialogue from another, the shadow, as being really crucial. Impactful.
Well, in a game that sounds like it has a pretty small cast, maybe just the 2 of them interacting mostly.
Seems that way.
Then, yeah, their dialogue becomes incredibly important. It's doing all the heavy lifting for character development, the relationship, the themes.
Yeah.
It's not just plot points.
Right. It's where you get the emotion, the inner state.
Exactly.
So what about the ending? Our source called it short, but impactful.
Okay.
But here's the really interesting bit. They described it as a realistic conclusion.
Realistic. In a game set in a surreal mental landscape.
That is interesting. Yeah, they found it kind of unexpected for this type of story, this journey through such an imaginative internal space.
Wow. A realistic conclusion. That makes you think. It suggests maybe the resolution isn't some big fantastical fix-all, but something more. Grounded. Relatable, maybe, about how people actually cope or find peace.
Exactly what I was thinking. Hints at something more introspective, perhaps less overtly dramatic than you might expect from the setup.
Fascinating. Really makes me curious about what that actually entails.
Me too. Now, it wasn't all perfect, of course. There were a few minor frustrations.
Always are.
Yeah. One was that lack of in-game hints we mentioned, particularly for some trickier mechanics later on. While the player sort of understood why preserve the atmosphere, keep the challenge consistent.
Right, the designer's intent.
They still felt that maybe, just maybe, a subtle clue here or there wouldn't have gone amiss.
Yeah, that's the eternal puzzle game debate, isn't it? How much help to give versus letting the player figure it out. It's a really fine line to walk.
It is. Another small gripe came up after finishing the main story, going back for those origami collectibles.
The cleanup.
Yeah. You can revisit levels, which is good. But the game apparently doesn't tell you which specific checkpoints within a level still have missing origami.
Ooh, that can be tedious.
Right. Especially if some areas have, loads of them. Hunting down that last one could involve replaying quite a bit of a section unnecessarily. a bit of a pain for completionists.
Yeah, that's a quality of life thing that could definitely be improved. Just a little indicator would save a lot of time for players who want that 100%.
Definitely. And finally, the player felt the game's length. Their 5 hours maybe felt slightly too long overall. Like perhaps the narrative felt a little stretched by the end. But they did admit, this is subjective.
Very subjective, yeah.
And it might have been influenced by how long they got stuck on certain puzzles. They even mentioned seeing reports of people finishing it in like 2 hours.
Wow, 2 hours is fast.
Yeah, game length perception is so personal. Depends on playstyle, how quickly you click with the puzzles. 5 hours doesn't sound excessively long for a puzzle adventure. But if the pacing felt off towards the end for them, that's valid feedback.
Right. The main thing is whether it stays engaging, I guess.
Exactly.
So wrapping up the overall impression, our source basically concluded that Shady Part of Me is a success. A really thought-provoking look at, internal struggles, maybe trauma, conveyed effectively through that unique world, the dual characters, the puzzle mechanics.
Sounds like you used the interactive medium really well then.
Yeah. And even without tons of explicit backstory, the player found the core story relatable. They connected it back to that idea that, everyone has two sides, or maybe seven.
I like that. Maybe 7. But yeah, that really sums up the themes we've been touching on. The duality, the different facets of identity, the internal conflicts. It all points to that complex, multifaceted nature of being human.
It does. And connecting it, to the bigger picture, it just shows how games can explore these really complex psychological ideas in a way that hits home for players personally. It's not just abstract.
Absolutely. Okay, so just to recap our deep dive into the Shady Part of Me, we're looking at a game that really scores points for its atmosphere, evocative, maybe a little haunting. That core mechanic of controlling the two linked characters is compelling and unique.
Definitely the hook.
And it uses all that to explore these thought-provoking themes of inner conflict, ending in what sounds like a surprisingly grounded, realistic way.
Yeah, a really intriguing package overall. Which brings us to a final thought, maybe, for you listening.
Go for it.
Thinking about that idea from the player,
Yeah.
the two sides, or maybe the many sides, within yourself. How do those different parts of your personality or your memories, your experiences, how do they interact? Do they, in a way, create their own internal landscapes inside you, maybe with their own patches of light and shadow, kind of like the world in this game?
That's a really interesting question to ponder.
Yeah, something to maybe reflect on long after you've stopped thinking about the game itself. How do our own inner worlds work?